Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we're going to be taking a little bit of a look at a new Tropius card. It was revealed on the official Japanese channel today. It has been translated by our friend, the lovely David Hockman, over at Rappelman TCG over on Facebook. And it's not the kind of card that you're going to put in and start winning every game, but it is certainly the kind of card that can help out a whole bunch of grass decks. Now, starting off, it's got 120 HP, which is not ideal. It means that something like Buzzwole will get an easy KO. We talk a lot on the channel about 120 and 130. There are a lot of Pokemon that hit 120 and a lot that hit 130. You really want 130 HP. Boo, etc. Weakness to fire, not good. With Welder and stuff like that, fire decks are crushing at the moment. And retreat cost of 2 is quite high, but remember we've got that new Beware that I'm mentioning in a bunch of videos, which will reduce your retreat cost by 2 if Beware's on the bench and give you free retreat. I don't know how much play Beware is going to see, but I really do hope it's a lot. Then of course you're a grass Pokemon, that means weakness on Slowpoke and Psyduck, for instance, or Magikarp and Wailord, if that's what you're into. And it means you've got a bunch of healing options with stuff like the Shaman from Lost Thunder and Life Forest Prism Star, as well as natural partners like Celebi and Venusaur, or Venusaur and Snivy. But what does it actually do? Well, the first attack here is quite a nice one. 1 colourless energy, search your deck for a grass energy, and attach it to one of your Pokemon. It's very straightforward. Now, one thing we need to mention right off the bat, which is always important with attacks like this, you've got to attach an energy to Tropius in order to actually use this attack. So if you attach 1 energy to Tropius so you can attach 1 energy to one of your other Pokemon, and then Tropius gets KO'd, you may as well have just attached the energy to the other Pokemon in the first place, because you're not gaining any energy. So to get the most out of this attack, you really do need to have 2 turns of Tropius accelerating energy. But then we look at the kind of Pokemon that might use this, your Celebi and Venusaur, your Venusaur and Snivy. They're very expensive attackers, and they've actually lost double colourless energy to the rotation. So maybe there is a bit of a niche for Tropius here, as a starting Pokemon in these decks to just attach energy. Because let's take a look at an average Celebi and Venusaur deck. And these are decks, they've seen a lot of play and a fair bit of success. They generally play Celebi and Venusaur, which until it's got free energy on does nothing, and Shaman, which does very little. In terms of an attacker, it's not particularly good. I played a wonderful game against a good friend online the other day where I had Hooper and they had Shaman, and they didn't want to bring out Celebi and Venusaur, so they tried taking down a Hooper with a Shaman. And I'll be honest with you, right? Between all of their Shaman, they were actually healing a lot. And they had Ether Paradise Conservation Area. It was tanking, but it still wasn't enough. If you can't take down a Hooper with a Shaman, it's not really an attacker you should be investing in. Which means that there is a bit of an opening here for a starting Pokemon, a turn 1, a turn 2 Pokemon. A Pokemon to do something in the early game. And maybe Tropius is your boy here. Maybe Tropius is what's going to fill that gap. Because you've got the healing here. So maybe between Shaman and we are losing Ether Paradise Conservation Area to the rotation, but between, 3 or 4 Shaman on the bench, if your opponent isn't doing 120, then you can be healing quite a lot. Let's say you're against an Articuno in a water deck. They do 70, you heal 80. They do 70, you heal 80. You're in a little bit of a stalemate. But that's good because you want to just waste some time till your Celebi and Venusaur and Snivy, is up and running here. Or maybe you're against something like a Buzzwole in the early game, or a Pheromosa and Buzzwole. You pop yourself a Mew on the bench and a couple of Shaman, and that Pheromosa and Buzzwole is doing nothing. I think this could work. If you're getting one hit KO'd, it's pointless, because you're never actually getting any value out of this. But as long as you're getting 1 or 2 extra turns, so 2 or 3 in total, of getting the energy out here, I think this could work. Now, as for the second attack, 1 grass, 1 colourless energy, 50 damage, heal 30. I actually really like this. Now look, 50 damage is not great. Now, if you come against that Duskull we talked about the other day, he going down. Come across a Ditto Prism Star, he going down. But come against most other things and they're not. You got a bunch of 60 HP Pokemon like Inkay, 70 HP Pokemon like Poipole or Jirachi. 50's not going to be enough. Even if you're hitting for weakness, I mean, you know, something like a Magikarp and Wailord just still looking at a free hit KO, even with weakness. So I'm not digging the amount of damage you're doing. What I am digging is healing 30. Because you see, your opponent needs to do 120 to 1-hit KO you. So if they do 120, you're done, you're KO'd, it's over. But if they do 110, you put 4 Shaman on the bench and heal 80, then you heal 30 when you attack, and you have completely healed. Now, I know that 120 is not exactly the most HP ever. It's not the biggest amount of damage ever. But I will say that you can heal completely if you're not 1-hit KO'd. And there are a bunch of Pokemon out there that won't be 1-hit KOing. You're forcing a Zapdos to use 2 Electro Power to get a 1-hit KO, and if they can't get a 1-hit KO, they're not KOing. And Zapdos is one of the best decks in the format. And Zapdos is playing 4 Electro Power. Now, maybe they're playing Electro Charger, and maybe they can use that to get them back, but most Zapdos decks aren't. And sure, Zapdos are generally playing, well, a lot of them at least are playing Ultra Beast anyway, so maybe they can have 1 turn where they get a KO of a Buzzwole, and maybe 1 turn with a Nihilego. Having said that, what attack is Nihilego going to copy of yours if you've got Tropius and Shaman out? I'm not saying that this is going to be some kind of powerhouse healing deck, because it's not. Something like Reshiram and Charizard is going to destroy it. Something like Pikachu and Zekrom is going to destroy it. Something like Celebi and Venusaur, Blacephalon, I could keep going, you get the idea. They are all going to run through this like a hot knife through butter, or indeed any knife through hot butter. But there are going to be some decks that are going to struggle. There are going to be decks like, I mean, I know it's rotating, but let's say your opponent's relying on Hooper. How are they KOing you? They're not. They're just not. Or they're going to be sitting there with a Zapdos, and Zapdos can get 2 KOs using Electro Power, and maybe 1 with Buzzwole. But after that, Zapdos Ultra Beast is actually going to be struggling a little bit. Now, the other thing is you're still only doing 50. I don't know how seriously we can take this as an attacker. But in terms of buying time, we can. And that's my entire point here. This is a Pokemon that buys you time. This is a Pokemon which is trying to accelerate energy so that your bigger attackers can go off. And then when your bigger attackers get KO'd, maybe you use a second attack to buy a bit of time. Something like Zapdos, we haven't got something like Guzma after rotation. Your opponent is going to be struggling to gust up your Pokemon. So maybe here you just go, you know what? I'm going to buy a couple of turns with Tropius while I get a bigger, badder Pokemon rolling. You aren't going to build a deck around Tropius. As much fun as it is to sit there with your Zapdos opponent not being able to KO you, it's not realistic. That's not something we can actually imagine happening. But playing it as a 1 or a 2 of in a Celebi and Venusaur and Snivy deck, while you're accelerating energy with the first attack and then buying a bit of time in the mid-game to get yourself up again, that I can see as a genuine use for Tropius. I think it's the kind of Pokemon where you want to put 1 or 2 copies in your binder, because you might want to put it in as a starting Pokemon, mid-game, slowing downing Pokemon. Is that a phrase? Let's call it a phrase. In your bigger grass decks, and we have some bigger, slower grass decks. So it's a free Wossy Pokemon. It's a free Wossy card. It is pretty much the exact definition of a free Wossy card. It's a kind of Pokemon where if someone goes, Wossy, what's a free Wossy card? I could go, boom, Tropius. It's not great. It's not the kind of card you want to build a deck around. But you do want 1 or 2 copies in your deck because you never know. you might want to pop it in another deck. So that's what I think about Tropius, but I'd be kind of excited to know what you think about Tropius. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.